many games will the Houston Texans win in 2025? Welcome, Texans fans, to my official record prediction and schedule preview for the Texans 2025 NFL season. Before I get started, spike the like button and let me know in the comments how many games you think the Texans will win in 2025. Will they win the AFC South, and how far will they go in the playoffs if they make it? Let's get started with the schedule, beginning with week number 1. One of the most difficult games on the entire schedule happens to be week 1 in Los Angeles against the Rams. Matthew Stafford, Puka Nacua, and the newly added Devontae Adams. This is going to be a great showdown between one of the best receiver combinations and one of the best corner combos in the NFL. Derek Stingley and Kamari Lassiter are going to have a lot in terms of their hands will be full in this game, okay? Sean McVay, DeMeco Ryans, they know each other very well as well from the 49er-Rams rivalry days. My biggest edge in this game, I just don't know if the Texans' offensive line will be ready for a pass rush like the Rams. So that's where I lean towards the Rams. I could see the Texans' defense giving the Rams' offense some issues. That being said, the Rams are very well coached on offense. The Rams, I think, will scheme up ways to move the ball on the Texans' defense. Even if Houston is giving Stafford some problems and is putting pressure on Stafford, they'll eventually find their ways. To me, I need to see the Texans' offensive line prove to me that they can hold up and deal with a unit such as the Rams pass rush. That could be one of the best in football this year. Even if you can attack their secondary, right? Nico Collins, Christian Kirk, they should have enough in this game to be able to get plays down the field, but they have to block for CJ. And that ultimately, I just think there'll be too many sacks, too many pressures in big moments. That will make the difference in a close game against LA on the road, especially on the road in week 1. Like, on the road is tough. You got to deal with that crowd noise. You got to deal with the communication of the first game of the season. So that's why I have the Rams there. Week number 2, Tampa in Houston on a Monday night. This should be a great game. I like the Texans here, but it could go either way. Tampa is going to be adjusting to, just like Houston, a new offensive coordinator. At the same time, I think that Tampa does have a good pass rush, but they like to blitz more, and I feel like that's going to allow you to find some advantages down the field with CJ Stroud, Nico Collins, and this receiving core. Tampa does have a very good offense, but the Texans at home on defense in a primetime setting should be about as big of a challenge as the Bucs will face all year. Plus, Chris Godwin will still be working his way back from injury. So I lean Texans, but this should be a very close game. Could go either way. I'm just going to go with the Texans because they're at home, and I like that pass rush and that defense at home in a primetime spot. We've seen them play very well in that environment. Week 3, the Texans in Jacksonville. I think they'll probably lose to Jacksonville once this year if Trevor Lawrence is healthy for both matchups. So I'll take the Jags. I think Liam Cohen, the former Tampa Bay offensive coordinator, kind of weird that they play each other back to back. I kind of think that this is going to be a game where after playing 2 huge games, you play the Rams, you play the Bucs, primetime game, almost basically essentially a primetime game. Everybody will be watching that game. Against Jacksonville, it's going to be kind of a sleepy game. You go to Duval and you fall asleep, and early you get down on the scoreboard and you just can't quite recover, okay? That being said, Jacksonville's defense will be probably the easiest you've seen so far. Their secondary is susceptible. You should be able to be comfortable and score some points. But I could see Jacksonville putting up some points too. I mean, they've got a challenging receiving core. They've got Travis Hunter now. Yeah. I mean, the Texans are a better team. I just think this is a division rivalry. Jacksonville will steal one of the games. Week 4, Cam Ward, young into his career against one of the best defenses in football on the road. Good luck, sir. I will take the Texans. Pretty simple. Week 5, I think you'll probably lose to the Ravens in Baltimore. You've lost to the Ravens the last 2 years consecutively in pretty embarrassing and convincing fashion. Hopefully it's not as embarrassing or convincing, But I do think the Ravens have shown to be a tough matchup for the Texans because of their run game and their physicality. And I think that will remain, especially in Baltimore. Then you've got the bye week where hopefully, you're 2-3. Hopefully you're not 1-4. This is a really tough start to the season. Ideally, you'd be 4-2. I think there's almost no way you're 5-0. But hey, you have an early bye week, so you can adjust. That being said, I still think, like I said, the offensive line is going to have to work through some things early in the year. That's probably going to be the main cause of concern entering the bye week. Week 7, you play Seattle on a Monday night off of a bye in Seattle. You should be well rested. Going to Seattle is never easy, especially in prime time. But I like the Texans because I think their pass rush will give Seattle's offensive line issues, and I think the Texans ultimately are the more explosive offense. Even if Seattle's defense can make some plays, which they're a good defense, Mike Macdonald, right? We've seen Mike Macdonald give CJ some fits in the playoffs a couple of years ago. But that being said, I just think the Texans have more explosive ways of moving the ball. Seattle is going to be a very slow offense, and I think the Texans can take advantage of that, and I think their defense will come to play here. Week 8, I think you steal a game against San Francisco at home. San Francisco, I think, will be in the playoffs again this year, very much improved, but I think DeMeco's familiarity with both Robert Saleh and Kyle Shanahan will be used to their advantage, and I think that this will be one of the tougher games for the 49ers, just from like a matchup perspective and a matchup standpoint. I do think the Texans being at home is a big advantage. The Niners, one of their bigger weaknesses is their offensive line. And I do think that the Niners have a young defense. There will be spots that you can take advantage of them. So I think the Texans will win that game. CJ outduels Purdy. Week 9, Broncos at the Texans. I actually have the Broncos winning this game. This could be a game that the Texans win. Both teams are very similar to each other. I think their defenses are more talented than their offenses, but their offenses have young, promising quarterbacks. Sean Payton, though, I think will be the difference in his ability to scheme around the Texans' pressure and move the ball through screen game, RPOs, and things like that. And I think the Broncos' pressure, they led the NFL in sacks last year, will be the difference. But I could see the Texans winning because Denver doesn't have a great running game. I think the Texans, that will make them one-dimensional potentially. There are ways that they can win, but hey, Pat Surtain, they've got a good secondary too. So Denver and Houston are very close in my opinion, but I'm leaning Denver here just because of that defensive line matchup. Week 10, I'll take the Texans over Jacksonville to get their revenge. Just feel like they're going to split, and it's in Houston. Week 11, I think they'll sweep the Titans. I don't think the Titans are very good this year, and I don't think every time it's a split between division rivalries, even if it's two competitive teams, two close teams. Cam Ward should be better at this point, and the Titans should be getting better as an offense. I just think the Texans are so much more talented than Tennessee that will ultimately make the difference and be the difference. So I'm going to take the Texans. Week 12, Buffalo in Houston on a Thursday night short week. Give me the Texans to win that game. I think that they beat the Bills last year. I think they can do it again. This is a good matchup for the Texans because I think they're able to suffocate those receivers in Buffalo. I think they're able to get some pressure on Allen more than most teams. And I think they're just able to make the Bills more of a team instead of just Josh Allen doing everything, right? Like when you force their receivers to truly make plays on the outside, that's where they have more difficulty offensively. And I don't think they have the style of running game, Buffalo, where they're just going to be able to bludgeon the Texans. Defensively, I don't think the Bills are overwhelming in any facet. They're just solid across the board, which will allow the Texans to find a bit of rhythm in both the pass and the run game. So I think the Texans win this game with the home field advantage. If this was in Buffalo, I would take the Bills. Week 13, they probably lose to the Colts once. I mean, just because the Colts do have a very good front on both sides of the ball, especially their defensive line, which is deep and pretty nasty. They will have improved defensive coaching this year, and I don't know what to make of their quarterback position, but I don't know. It's the Colts, it's the Texans. One of these games will probably go wacky and wild. Week 14, I'm going to take the Chiefs over the Texans because they've beat them the last few times in a row. I'm just going to stay with the consistency of the matchup from last year and say that they can't beat the Chiefs yet until I really see it. Just being honest, I need to see them do it before they do it. That being said, On paper, it's not a terrible matchup. Like, the Chiefs don't have an overwhelming pass rush, and their offense does have a pretty bad offensive line. Like, on paper, it's not a bad matchup. So, but I just feel like Mahomes and Andy Reid have found a way to beat the Texans multiple times in a row now in fairly convincing fashion. And until the Texans offense proves to me they can be more consistent against Spags, I'm not going to buy it. Week 15, Texans beat the Cardinals. I think Kyler at this point in the year starts to slow down. The Cardinals as a team start to slow down. And the Cardinals are talented. They're better than last year, but it's on the road in Houston. I think the Texans have the defensive speed to corral Kyler and to slow down this offense. And I also feel like the Cardinals aren't quite there defensively to be able to handle everything the Texans can handle or offer offensively. Plus, by this point in the year, the Texans should be a little bit better with some of their younger weapons, maybe even Tank Dell. I don't know if Tank Dell is going to be out for the entire year. That might have been reported. But I think at the very least, they're going to have some of these younger guys that are starting to step up and just provide the difference over a team like Arizona, who doesn't have great cover corners or a great secondary. Week 16, the Raiders at Houston. I'll take the Texans, although this won't be an easy game. I just don't think the Raiders have the secondary to match up with Houston. I feel like their pass rush is pretty good, but they just have more holes on their team. They're average on the offensive line. I feel like Geno and Stroud, like, one could outplay the other on their best day, but it's not like outrageous either way. And then I don't know. I kind of feel like the Raiders, they don't have a true vertical threat on the outside. I just think the Raiders are not quite as talented or as good. They're on the road, but I do think the Raiders are a challenge. It's not an easy game. Week 17, I think the Texans will beat the Chargers again. They smoked them at home in the playoffs last year. I'm going to go just like I did with the Chiefs, right? They could easily beat the Chiefs and lose to the Chargers. That's not without question, but I'm just going to lean towards what I saw last year, which was that even if the teams are a little bit different, the Texans proved to me that they can smother and get after the Chargers offense. And I don't know if the Chargers have made enough adjustments for that to change in my mind. Plus, the Texans, I don't think the Chargers pass rush is that crazy. I do think Stroud can make some plays here, and it's not like they play a ton of zone, so I'm not like too concerned. So to me, like, I think the Texans are just a tough matchup for the Chargers, even in LA. And then week 18 against the Colts, I think the Texans win. So that means the Texans are 11-6 in my mind this year. They win their division, and they are one of the top seeds in the AFC. I have them as currently the 4th seed, but this could be dependent on how they perform against Baltimore, how they perform against Buffalo, and Kansas City. I think the weakest of Buffalo, Ravens, and Kansas City will actually be the Chiefs. So if they can find a way to beat the Chiefs, I think, and if they could beat the Chargers or the Broncos, I mean, one of those teams might steal the division this year because of the Super Bowl hangover from the Chiefs. But they could move up to the 3rd seed. I see them as the 4 seed, though. That being said, the Texans, it's going to be vibe-based entering the playoffs. Like, how is their defense as dominant as I think? Is Stroud closer to rookie form, or is he to sophomore form? And the offensive line will be most important. Is the offensive line better than last year? If they can get more protection from their offensive line, this could be a very dangerous team in the playoffs because they could potentially be one of the more balanced NFL teams with a potent offense and an excellent defense. So that's what they're aiming for. I'm just not sure if they've secured it yet, so I need to see it. There it is, guys. The Texans prediction, 11-6. Thank you guys for watching. Spike the like button if you enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next record prediction video. Peace.